Okay.
And so anyway, I had to kill him.
Yeah. I mean, no choice, right?
Well,
Where'd you put him, by the way? Oh, wait, hang on. Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today we're talking about some Warhammer stuff. We had a pretty big week, right? It's the first week of 11th edition, which we won't talk too much about. Some more stuff's coming, right? We haven't really seen previews per se of any more Orc and Space Marine stuff. I mean, we know more is coming. They've said so. They've hinted at a few things that are coming, but we really haven't paid those off just yet. We got something for Space Marines. What was it? Multi-part kit for Outriders. We saw what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a very small thing. We knew those were coming. So, but more's coming this week. I think we're mostly focused on Age of Sigmar because they got their seasonal, like yearly book, which I didn't think it was supposed to be yearly book, but it is seeming like
it almost feels like a new edition when they do it. Like it brought such significant updates to it, and they usually do. They do the chapter approved on the 40K side, the General's Handbook on the Age of Sigmar side, and it just like changes the meta, even if like the core mechanics for an army haven't changed. But yeah, so far, lots of stuff to digest there, right?
Yeah, for sure. We in addition to that new book, which we have in hand now, we've also gotten some of the seasonal rules for some of the updates to the war scrolls or like alternate war scrolls for some of the units, plus like alternate spell lores and monstrous traits and all that for the season. That really helps out an army, obviously, because if you've got a second version of your spells that you can choose from instead, it might be better for your playstyle. Or some of the things like monstrous infantry traits or like monster mutations, things like that, are just straight up additions to your army. Like you're not trading anything for that. You just get that. That's a buff to your army, right? Skaven got that. Skaven got for their Molder creations, their units can take a mutation. That's in addition to everything else that they have.
And
a pretty big buff.
It's funny is then I'm going to come back to Skaven right away, but Slaves to Darkness still have that detachment, I guess you could say, where they are incentivized to play monsters, but then they don't have monsters in their army.
Mm-hmm.
And now this season,
all the monsters are in Old World now.
Yeah, including the new impressive dragon. But
what's weird is like they did get their own new stuff, and they're all very good, right? The new Warriors of Chaos, and then a new Theridin, or was it Theridin? What was it? Myrmidon. Pretty good changes, I think. I mean, pretty much everything I saw, I think immediately had a use, right? None of it was like we weren't questioning why they did it, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we got for this season especially was designed with this season in mind.
Yeah.
So a lot of the alternate war scrolls have things like rules on the war scroll that directly interact with the rage mechanic,
the rage mechanic,
for this season. It was the Chaos Lord and Karakadrak, by the way, that got the update.
He seems really good, by the way.
I mean, the old one was good. The new one is even better, I think. He's more selfish, which I like for some characters, but also still is, a synergy piece. I think he's very, very good. I think he's solid. I think I would play him over the old one. And then, obviously, these new Chaos Warriors have a different purpose. I think they're also very, very good. The fact that they get increasing buffs from having a higher fury level makes them, again, very solid. At least, maybe if you're bringing just one unit of warriors, because the buff that they get is once per turn for your army, and so you really kind of only want to have one unit of it in order to take advantage of it, because you won't get it for the second one. But giving that Chaos Warrior unit maybe like one of your marks now that synergizes with your fury level buffs, like makes that unit very effective. I'd really like to see it.
Well, and so there's some things that I wish would carry on, and then some that I'm fine when they don't. And so the soggy versions or Scourge of Aqshy versions that we saw with some units, like the Brood Terror, horror for Skaven, All that it looked
Big,
like
the
to
big
me,
two-legged one. It's the Brute Terror.
I don't
Oh
know.
man, I don't
It's
remember.
it's the bipedal version of the mutant monster. And
Yeah.
what I do know is the Soggy version, the Scourge of Aqshy version, was simply put a straight up upgrade to the original. It wasn't. It didn't feel like it was just seasonally in flavor. It was, or flavorfully in season. It just seemed like it was straight up better. And those I wish would stick around, would become the new
Agreed.
permanent war scroll.
Same with the Braxia, right? The Scourge of Aqshy Braxia was just better in every way than the vanilla Abraxia. And we no longer have access to that. That's unfortunate. She goes back to being, okay, well, you're a, whatever of the ever chosen.
You're a
What do you
tag
do?
along
What
to
is
the
your
Baron Guard.
purpose? Yeah, you are a almost 400 point tax to buff Varengard. That's what you do now.
Yeah, and it's like I
Unfortunate.
wish when it was like that, where it was just a straight improvement, that it would stick. When it was like an alternate way to play that felt flavorful to the season, for example, Rodigus, where his original version was fine, and then they just made a different way to play him. Like those, I'm fine rotating out, okay?
Mhm.
But when it's just an improvement to a bad war scroll, like I just wish it would stick. So I don't know. Games Workshop claimed on the Warhammer community site some things from Scourge of Aqshy would hang around. I haven't looked deep enough to know what those are yet. But
I think I saw 3 that were exactly the same as the previous season.
okay,
It was a Stormcast hero and the Griffin, the named one. I think that Iridan character was. I think he was they were exactly the same. The Cruel Boys boss on the Great Nashtooth, that one that like drags an enemy hero away. It was exactly the same. And there was one other one. I can't think of it now, but there was another one that was just identical. So while correct, yes, some of them were carried over. It was very, very few. I kind of wish it would have been, okay, well, every army doesn't get 2. Maybe say like, hey, the Scourge of Aqshy ones, like you can continue to use those. Like, why not? Why retire them to that season if they weren't problematic? Why not just keep them? Because again, alternate ways to play, breathing new life into models is never a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's because when stuff like that happened, where it just felt like a straight improvement or fix, which is something people have asked for, and now that we're in this digital era, they can. Like sometimes you just need to fix a war scroll or fix a data sheet. You don't need to make a seasonal adjustment to it or just a points swing. And that particular monster in Skaven, because I remember it was like the model came out, it was sweet. Everybody wanted 3 of them, but it was like, oh, but he's not good at all. And then we get Scourge of Aqshy, and it was like, oh, this version's exactly what you wanted him to be, but not broken. And it's like now everybody's buying him, and it's like, oh, but no, that's going away. So does the new thing I was going to ask that they get for some Molder stuff? What does that do for him, if anything?
So I mean, it can. I mean, you can apply it to any non-character, non-unique Molder unit. Actually, I think maybe I gotta check the wording on it. It might not even specify Molder. It's a Molder mutation. Is the chart.
Okay.
And it says they're unique enhancements that be given to any non-hero, non-war machine. So monsters, yes. Non-hero, non-war machine, Skaven unit. It's like, okay, well, why wouldn't you give it to Storm Vermin or,
Okay, yeah.
I mean, obviously Rat Ogres or Storm Fiends or something like that too, but you can give it to anything, really. And so the buffs are pretty damn good. Transplanted brains, anabolic accelerators, serrated bone protrusions. Those are the 3, though. And what they do for you is the first one, you can give a unit the effect for the turn. You choose at every hero phase. +1 to hit rolls for combat attacks. But you trade off and only have a control score of 1. Okay, I would take that trade on most things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not like sneaking in to steal an objective, why not give your unit +1 to hit just in melee? Or the other one is you increase your control characteristic of the unit by 10. So you choose one of those 2 things. And it's like, okay, that's solid. Anyway, the second Molder mutation is a charge ability. You roll 3 dice, drop the lowest, which is just great, right? And these are specifically for non-heroes. So you put these on other units. And then the last one is basically return damage. When the enemy attacks you, for every one they roll to hit, they take a mortal wound after the fight. So it's like those mutations are just straight up free. Like you just get to pick one, and there you go. And they're all useful. Like I don't know which one. I mean, maybe the return damage is the least useful one, but still, like.
Well, you know what I saw them lean into a bit more with the most recent, both the battle scroll and then this. They're leaning more into that keyword usage for abilities where it says like once per turn per army. And so the reason that's so good of a design is you'll hear people complain, at least the 40K players always complain about spam. And like, well, once a unit's good, people just find a way to fit as many of that. Or when a weapon's good or stratagem's good, you find as many ways to use or reuse that as possible. And one of the things they try to do on the 40K side to mitigate that is now there's like, well, there's an increased points cost if you buy more than one of the same unit. And okay, that's okay. And they used to do the rule of 3, and that was okay. But people don't like restrictions on list building so much. They just want a reason to take other things. Age of Sigmar's had that kind of solved for a while, and now they're leaning into it more. By doing that thing where you have a really powerful ability on a unit, and it says once per turn per army, well, that means it doesn't matter if you run 4 of that unit. You're paying the points for that ability, and you only get to use it once no matter what. So, like, I think that eliminates some of that desire to spam something, because even if their stats are good on a unit, if a unit's 200 points, it might not feel like 200 points without that special ability it's got baked in. But if you can only use it once, no matter how many versions of the unit you have, I don't know. I think that's a good way to disincentivize spam, and a lot of the AOS lists aren't that spammy unless they need the bodies for something. So I don't know. That's a simple rules design, I think, that they could carry over into their other games.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I think it's a clever way to do it, by limiting how many times this can be used per turn. It's almost like adding stratagems to the game, or commands, whatever, to the game that can only be used on certain units. And once you've used it on one of the units, it's used up for that turn. I mean, that's a good way to think of it, right? And so it's like, well, you can target any of these 3 or 4 units, whatever, how many you brought, with this stratagem, whatever it is on their war scroll. But because it's, a stratagem, whatever, command, you can only use it once per turn.
Once per turn, yep.
We just think of it that way, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, the other units still can fight. They still have their stats. They still, but you can only use this special ability on one unit. Got to pick carefully. But it's not saying like you commit to using it on that one unit the whole game.
No.
Once that unit dies, it's like, okay, well, this next one's lined up. This next one can use it. And then, if that unit dies, the third unit could use it. And
so there is still a reason to buy more than one unit. It's just like the value might not show itself right away. But that also gives value to those units later in the game. Because again, we've seen them try to drift with both systems to a way to make it so the first turn is a little less important. Because one of the things in that golden era of War Machine Mark II, for anyone who knows what that is, it was like basically nothing happened on turn 1 of the game. Both armies would move forward. Yeah.
To get out of the death zone, because the board shrank in War Machine Mark II. So you had to move towards the center of the battlefield, which, whatever, fine. But then you'd maybe have the one-off like long bomb shot you're not in range for, and you hope that it scatters towards your opponent.
Yep.
And maybe it will blast them with a shot. But basically, in that first turn, you were spending it moving into position right after you deployed. You're moving into position for the next turn, and then activating your buffs on all your units.
Yep.
That's all you did on your first turn for the most part. It was very uneventful.
And I think we've seen when Games Workshop started adding these deployment phase abilities and a hero phase in some versions, that was with that idea in mind. But then now having just less action happen until you get closer, shrinking the range of stuff made a big difference. in 40K, it looks like they've leaned even harder into that in the new edition, where it's like, well, you can't even shoot at this unit if they're in cover and outside of 15 or whatever. So like now it's not like, when can I be the first one to get a full shooting phase and then therefore I win the game? It like they're moving even more towards the direction of getting people to interact before stuff happens. Anyway, what are you most excited for with the new General's Handbook that you've seen so far to try out with like your armies, or do you think it helps an army that was struggling?
So I do like the buffs they gave to Skaven are very good. I think they got one of the better War Scrolls in the alternate Verminlord Corruptor.
Oh, okay.
That's the one Verminlord I've not assembled.
That's the Pestilence one?
Yeah, the Priest. I have
with
all
the
other
sides.
ones. I've got a Warp Gnaw Verminlord, which is a Forge World one that I think I would use as the Corruptor, so I don't have to get a new one. That unit's War Scroll is Legends a long time ago. It's gone. So that might be my Corruptor. But he's got some really good abilities to synergize with this season. I think they're very solid. He might be like one of the winning War Scrolls, honestly. He's very good. Check him out. Basically, he gets one of 3 abilities at the start of the game, and then his seasonal like Fury ability is one of the most powerful ones I've seen so far. So basically, what he does is he gets to choose. Well, what do you want to do with this guy at the start of the battle? You can either have his 6 shooting attacks that he gets, his Plague Breath, get +1 damage, so it's damage 2. 6 shots, 2s, 4s, -2/2. Pretty damn good.
Nice.
Or you can make it so that while he's damaged, you can just reroll all chanting rolls for all Pestilence priests while they're wholly within 13 inches of him. That's a very good ability. Or I think this one's kind of busted. You give him an aura so that when he's in combat with an enemy unit, when he's within 6 inches of an enemy unit, other enemy units cannot see that unit if they're more than 3 inches away.
Oh,
so he like shrouds
more
enemy,
than 3. Wow.
Yeah, he shrouds enemy units from being able to see each other when they're near him. And like that alone, because like most abilities will say choose a visible enemy unit to buff or cast an ability on them or whatever.
Now they're not
like,
visible.
Now you can't do that anymore. That's pretty cool. The second one is also very, very good. It's you'll see he's got all these options. So that's one ability, right? It's one ability you get for the whole battle. Choose one of those 3. The second one is once per turn. It's a rage dice spender. So you spend your fury levels for it, and you get one of 4 abilities. For the rest of the battle, mind you. You can choose an enemy or an ally and apply the relevant effect that you choose. One of the things is just straight up add +1 to the attacks characteristic of the unit you choose. And you buff the unit for the rest of the battle. So in 1 Fury, now you have +1 attack on every melee weapon for that unit. Great. Obviously, you want to use it on an ally, not an enemy, but maybe there's a case you use it on an enemy at some point. I don't know. Maybe you really want your enemy to, your enemy unit to kill one of your units so you can do something. I don't know, maybe. But that one I think is very, very solid just for that. The second one is if an ability would heal or return any slain models to the target unit, it does not heal or return slain models to the unit. So he just turns it off for the whole battle. It doesn't go away. That unit cannot heal anymore. That is brutal. That's
you go to it's either like so wait a minute. Would that include stuff like Troggoths who just heal?
Yeah, all of that. You just you turn off the regeneration.
Some of the strongest aspects of the Gloomspite Gets army I know are those Troggoths that are just a butt to move off an objective because they heal and they hit hard. And like all of a sudden you turn off that heal and then they die a little quicker. Or death armies.
The range is wholly within 13, right?
Yeah.
So it's short, but it turns it off for the whole battle. It's gross. Another one you can do, that's either +1 attacks, no healing. If the target is replaced and the replacement unit has 1 model, allocate damage points to that replacement unit equal to half X, where X is the health characteristic minus the number of damage points allocated to it.
Yeah.
So like if you bring a model back to life and it's a one model thing, they basically don't heal. They don't come back with any health, which is brutal. Now I think it's the way I'm reading it is they come back with lower health. Like when you cast it on them, like that's the amount they'll come back with, basically. And so you like timestamp. This is when you come back, you're this wounded when you come back. And then the last one is if the target is replaced and the replacement unit has more than one model, half the models in the replacement army or the replacement unit, rounding up, are automatically slain. So again, not only is it like, hey, usually there's a mechanic that says you can bring a unit back to, with half strength. This says, no, if you bring this unit back, it comes back at a quarter strength. It's like you're pre-killing models for a unit that isn't even on the board yet.
That has, for the savvy player, that has so many uses because you're like, not only the aforementioned like Troggots, but it was like, I mean, your rally rolls, your demons who will like, especially Zinch who will add models back to units, and then death armies, of course. That could become a really key unit for Skaven players to go against a wide variety of opponents. That's a really interesting new way to play for them. And so that's what I like about these seasons. One of my favorite things, and we can pause, we can edit out the part where I lost feed and came back and talked, resume. For the Putrid Blight Kings, actually, which is like my second army behind slaves, I've loved the new models. They haven't seen much play. Their role changed dramatically, and a lot of people haven't figured out what to do with them because they just started using rot swords to do what Putrid Blight Kings used to do. I get it. I've liked them, however, even though they had sort of a niche role. So with this update, they got a buff, I guess you could say. One thing that I hope becomes permanent, and it was a once per battle army deployment phase, the unit gains Priest 1.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like these new Putrid Blight Kings, when you read what they're supposed to be, lore-wise, and then you look at the models, like they should have been priests anyway, or you should have been able to nominate one unit of them to be priest. Maybe that's more fair, right? But they're these guys with robes and they're chanting and they're just devoted. So that I love. Then they gave the Nurgle army a new prayer lore. Like a new set of 3 prayers. So now they have more of those to choose from, which they're really expanding the priest stuff in the game. And I like that. Cities of Sigmar had a lot of that. And now we're seeing it here. And then they've got an ability now that's once per turn per army in the hero phase. You can basically burn a rage dice and you give your opponent +1 to their fury, I believe. If their fury
only if it's lower than yours, I think.
If it's lower than yours.
We say if you're the underdog, basically you've got less fury. You don't give fury to your opponent. Only if you're like ahead on fury.
And the Nurgle army, for those who are unfamiliar, the new Maggotkin of Nurgle army functions on like letting your opponents kind of get out to the middle of the battlefield first, or letting them charge first, or letting them take a bit of a lead. It kind of likes to play that way. It definitely now plays in the style of attrition. We've seen it is effective. The Maggotkin of Nurgle army has a very good win percentage. It's a strong army, and evidenced by the fact that their models are perpetually sold out. But this new ability for them I like. You spend a rage dice, and if their fury's lower than yours, they get +1. But then the unit, the Putrid Blight Kings, gain D3 ritual points. So now their prayers, they can do prayers more effectively.
It's pretty good.
And given that I haven't seen the points cost for the Aqshy Putrid Blight Kings, if it's any different, but the current unit is 5 dudes for 130 points. So this is why I always thought they were good anyway. They are 15 health with a 5-up, essentially 5-up ward if you have a Feculent Narmal in your army, which you do. And they're 130 points. Like,
I think this version is 140.
Yeah, still very cost effective.
Exactly.
And they're still very fighty against priests and wizards. So like that I think the unit is very useful. This is a good way to incentivize people to play them. I was happy because I was sitting on a couple boxes. I of course worked a vendor booth at Adepticon, and for those who don't know, when the vendors are closing down on Sunday, they're trying to get rid of stuff. They don't want to carry more product home. They don't offer those deals typically to the customers wandering down the vendor hall, but when they're closing up shop, then they offer some deals. I was able to get a couple boxes of these, and I was like, okay, they're not good yet, really, but I like them. And so I don't have to just play what's good. I want to play what I like, and these models look great. I think they look like a fun opportunity to paint also. I don't know. So I'm glad to see this update for them. The update to the Sloven Knights was interesting because I didn't think they were a unit that really needed help before. I thought they were plenty good on their own. But now, hang on, I don't remember the update they received. It hasn't updated in the app yet. But it was basically if they tag team a unit, they get extra damage, right?
Yep. So it's basically you target. It's again once per army, whatever. Once per turn per army, you target a unit that's in combat with this Sloven Knight unit and then another friendly Rotbringer unit, and they basically get +1 damage against that unit when they're being teamed up on. And generally, you would use that when you're, you've got a unit of rot swords in there fighting the enemy and got them locked down. You charge them with the Sloven Knights. Now you're tag teaming the enemy, right? But the Sloven Knights also get +1 damage on the charge anyway, just with their weapons.
Yeah.
So now it's plus. I mean, those abilities stack. So +1/+1. So while they only have 2 attacks per guy, and I think they've got a champion. So a unit of 3 is it's only 7 attacks, but that's 7 attacks now at damage 4. Like that's a ton of damage. And if you reinforce them, because why not? It's even more. Right?
And they're not expensive. Yeah, that's a cool way to give them another way to play. It's an army that I already isn't lacking, but
this version is more points than the other Sloven Knights. There are 70 points a model instead of 60 points a model for this ability.
They're a
little bit more. So 210 versus 180, but still like they're still pretty damn good. I don't know. Like I said, it's not required of you, right? Like you don't have to play the new ones. You can absolutely play the old ones, and the old ones.
But you can only play one or the other.
Good.
They did clarify that now. Well, they might.
So if you don't like that rule, though, then use the old ones. No problem.
Yep.
I think it's very, very solid. I like the style.
Well, and I think the way the army nothing in the army really moves that fast, and so knights are kind of fast for Nurgle anyway. And so if you team that up with, let's say, Gutrot Spume, and he's teleporting in some of these new Putrid Blight Kings, and you're getting them into stuff. Now you've got them in the Sloven Knights charge in the same turn, and now you're tag teaming something really big, and who knows?
And there's nothing to say in the rule that the other unit can't charge, right?
Correct.
So, like, you could have Lord of Afflictions or something, a Lord on a fly, right? He flies up and charges first, then this guy charges, and then all of a sudden you trigger this ability for +2 damage, right? Like,
Yep.
I don't know. Like, it seems fine to me.
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems like it's not even like niche. Like you can absolutely plan around you doing this.
Yeah, and again, it's an army that I think since their update has not been left wanting for good options, and now you've got another way to play, another thing to consider if you're an opponent of them. So I don't know. This has all been super exciting so far. I know we covered the preview event last week, and then we've seen some things trickle. You're right. They only showed us a little bit of new Space Marine stuff. And then so what do we think? Tomorrow's Monday. Do we think we'll see another new thing? Are they going to show off another new orc, another new? So one thing I
think there's a good chance, because we did have the preview event, right, which we talked about. I think there's a pretty good chance we see something else for ogres, right? Because we did get in the middle of last week also a teaser kind of preview view of what the new hunters look like, because we were talking about that, right? Last week we said the new Beast Claw Raiders, basically, their aesthetic is going away from winter, right, and more wildsmen, right, as what we'll call it. They're more attuned with nature and hunting and all this stuff for sustenance and eating and food, whatever, instead of the winter. These new hunters, I think, look kind of exemplify that, right? So if you look at these new hunters, they're clearly wild men. They're big crossbows. They've got leathers on them, but they don't necessarily look like they're in cold weather gear. You know what I mean? And so I'm okay with them going away from Beast Claws. Honestly,
Yeah.
It never really fit the aesthetic, in my opinion, of Age of Sigmar. And so, I mean, I'd fully expect that all the stuff we're getting kind of replaces some of the Beast Claw stuff, and we get new Mortal Realms versions of these things. So we did get them, and we got a little bit of like, especially with the Scourge of Aqshy stuff going on here. The 2 War Scrolls that they got were alternate Thunder Tusks, and they also, the paint schemes they chose for those were not wintry. They were more like mountainous, right? They had more like dark browns and less light blues, of like the winter. And so, like, even that, I think they're kind of leaning away from the cold weather stuff. But I could absolutely see them coming and showing us another ogre thing tomorrow. That's my prediction.
That could be. And to add to your point, it was like they were, so you had like a Iden and Thiepkin, right? Which they bring the water with them. They're like elven versions of Davy Jones kind of thing. And it was like ogres at first, while they didn't have much lore for them in the Mortal Realms. That's kind of what they did. They picked a seasonal theme, and okay, they're winter. But you're right. Now they've developed their lore a bit. We've got named character, or at least one, with potential for another one still coming.
I think the potential for another 2.
Potential for another 2. And so now they're developing that further. And I'm okay with them retconning their own when they went from not having a definition to now deciding they've written a story about them. And if they, so we could very well see another ogre. I think we're going to see an orc unit, because
which we could.
So from not only the rumors of what the orcs are getting, but we even remember they did that Warcom article when they were announcing Armageddon. Here's all the orc players involved. And they had, obviously, Gazkul, Boss Snickrot was doing stuff. And we have those models relatively recently updated. They look great. But then they showed a couple other named guys. So they had Nazdrag, for those who wonder. He used to be a Bad Moon war boss in Mega Armor. They made one model for him at the end of 2nd edition that was just like disco pose metal, and he looked awful. Haven't had a model since, hasn't really had rules since. But now they gave us like very specific artwork for him. I have a feeling he's going to get shown at some point. They also talked about Orchimedes, which they don't know if it's a single orc scientist or a team of them, which maybe they won't do a model, but there might be a rule that applies to the army that involves that.
Sure.
And then they showed another boss whose name I can't remember, but I think they wrote a novel about, but they did artwork for him also. I think the orcs have 2, possibly 3 named characters still to be shown, along with whatever units are getting updated. I feel like they're just, I don't know how much longer they can logjam those. And so I think we'll see a new orc thing tomorrow, but that's just my guess.
I mean, I guess it depends who wins, right? Because the whole Siege of Death Mire thing is already ongoing.
It's ongoing.
So they're already receiving results for different battle zones.
I'll admit I have not played a single game to contribute to that yet, but yeah.
So there's 2, like, they're fighting over 2 areas, essentially, like Imperium. The reason we saw the Outriders is the Imperium won the first week.
Yeah, which surprised me.
Wins,
it really did.
Imperium wins. Here you go. Here's your Outriders. This next week, if there's a different winner, we'll see that. I mean, it could be that Space Marines wins again, and we see another Space Marine unit.
Could be.
If Works wins, we see something else there. But I don't know. I absolutely could. I mean, I can guarantee this week we're going to see something, right? Either Orcs or Space Marines. We'll see something. But I also have the suspicion we're going to see something for Ogres too, because I think they're sitting on, like we said, 4 or 5 more kits for them that they need to show off at some point.
Yeah.
Which, talking about sandbagging kits is another thing we kind of always kind of think about and look at, right? When we
Yeah.
get new stuff coming out, especially when it comes like I was assembling some stuff, you were assembling some stuff, and we always have that kind of itch at the back where like, was this for Warcry? Because Warcry was a game that I thought was a lot of fun.
You could have ended that
And
sentence there. Warcry was a game.
was a game. It was a game, and I think it was a fun game. And I think there was a lot of stuff, a lot of effort put into setting up Warcry for maybe even another season or whatever, another edition.
I think they
you can
really
call it.
wanted it to be the Age of Sigmar equivalent to Kill Team. I really
And
do.
I think it could have. And I think
Yeah.
maybe they bungled it a bit, right? I think the releases might have been too slow. I think the focus of Warcry initially was way too chaos focused, right? Like
It was narrow.
it was cool because it was like here's all these chaos warbands that are participating in this Warcry setting. But when they tried to expand beyond that, it was a lot of stuff that like were one-offs and like weird things for the armies that were tangentially attached to. And I think that is where it kind of collapsed a bit, is the stuff was too tangential, right? It wasn't part of the army proper. You didn't have your dual focus. Everything that's been released for Kill Team is an update to a unit, or it's an addition to the to a 40k army properly. And so it's everyone wants to get them because they're expanding those armies. It's not like hey, what is this unit, this Warcry unit? Oh, we're going to make it available for it with these legends rules or these weird rules that we give you. And then it's like, well, are they going to be part of the army? Maybe eventually. Because there's still some stuff that just never got put into work, proper Age of Sigmar rules. That was weird. It was so like, it was so unknown.
It was
so
what was interesting is I loved the kits they made that were Warcry exclusives at first.
Yeah.
From the Unmade to the Cypher Lords to the Serpents to the like Iron Lords. I loved all that stuff. But when they then made Age of Sigmar rules for them, they all had the same stats and did nothing. And then when they wanted to open up to the other factions to play Warcry, all they did was they printed rules cards for units for every other faction. And they said, you can use your regular Age of Sigmar units in Warcry. Here's rules for them. And then those were just universally and objectively better than the Warcry warbands. Yeah. So now these brand new models for a game.
It also went from being like 12 warbands to like 100. Like it was
overnight.
Oversaturated that game.
And then it was, so now these super unique models are only usable in Warcry because they don't really have Age of Sigmar rules, but they're bad. So you're just going to use your Age of Sigmar stuff. And then they just stopped. And then they like teased a big update coming to Warcry and never paid it off. Like they had a trailer with a voice and everything, never paid it off. And I think we have seen a number, at least a dozen of units that have been released for Age of Sigmar that were probably intended for Warcry, and then they just discontinued the game basically. So
yeah, 100%. And I think even very recently we've seen that, right? Maybe some of the Skaven stuff we've seen have been that maybe these Putrid Blight Kings were intended for Warcry just because of how weird the kits were, right?
Well, and a lot of people talk about the first Eshin stuff we got was probably supposed to be a Warcry warband. And then they just packaged it with Cities of Sigmar and called it the whatever.
The Grenadiers from that City of Ash box set, I think were probably a Warcry warband. Because there were 10 models in there, right? Which pretty standard, but there was a clear leader who had like 2 melee weapons, 2 pistols, pistol and melee weapon options for his kit. So the kit couldn't equip every single model with the same weapons, right? Because like usually they have like a blunderbuss and an axe, right? That's what their stats say in Age of Sigmar. But only 4 models could have a blunderbuss and an axe.
Yeah.
One of them has One of them has a pistol. One of them has grenades. One of them has a like a scatter shot gun. It's like there are no rules for any of those represented in the War Scroll. That would have been a unit that had a different stat card in Warcry.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was like 4, 4, 1, and 1. It was like this really mixed unit, but they're all supposed to be equipped with the same thing in the main game. It's like, no. That was a unit that was going to have different War Scroll cards for you building a Warcry warband. I guarantee it.
We've seen when
there's also yeah, go ahead.
Oh, when we've seen when a unit is designed for Age of Sigmar proper, it's like multi-part, has the ability to make all of one or all of the other, and then plus standard musician and champion.
Right.
And when a kit doesn't come with all of that, when it's got a bunch of unique weapons and then no standard or no musician or what, it's like, I wonder if that was supposed to be a Warcry thing. And
questionable. I mean, even looking at that, like we were talking about that Ogre warband, right?
Yeah.
This newest Ogre warband, it's like, well, there's 3 models there. They're all pretty mono pose.
For the new hunters.
Yeah, for the new hunters for ogres.
Yeah.
It's 3 ogres plus 2 saber tusks, and they're all a 1 unit. Probably gonna be 1 unit. So the saber tusk could be a separate unit, but it's also like, okay, well, there's no command there, right? There's no
alternate build, no nothing.
There's no musician, no whatever. Okay,
yeah.
And then it's like, well, that's how they like to implement bigger guys into Warcry, because usually it's like, oh, 10 humans. It's like, well, you couldn't have 10 ogres,
no,
or 5 ogres. You know, that'd be too much. 1 ogre is more, is stronger than 2 humans. And so it's like, okay, well, you get 3 ogres and you get these couple of other beasts that are weaker than an ogre to kind of offset, to have, so you have the numbers, but you're offsetting your strength of your warband. Well, that's exactly what this looks like, right? It's like, I mean, what the Wildercore hunters had 8 guys and 2 dogs.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's always like, is this what this was for? It's like, this is you were going to release for that and you just never did. And so you repurposed it. It's like, I always have that thought when I see new stuff. I mean, obviously none of the other ogre stuff, like the other ogre stuff was properly like, Age of Sigmar designed.
Yeah.
Got it. But then you didn't include that in the starter box. You included this as like, hey, by the way, the starter box is coming. Here's another unit right after, like the day after. Here's a new one. Like,
yeah. And we know that their lead time is anywhere from 18 to 24 months. So they might have had 2 years of Warcry stuff made, designed, moving to production, and they just couldn't go back on it. And so they just moved them to Age of Sigmar. I mean, I'm glad it's going to give, in this case, Ogre Maw tribes an expansion to the roster to make up for anything they might lose. But I do wonder if it was like a Warcry warband that was never.
But even thinking about what they might lose, I think they might end up with more than they had. Still.
I think so too.
I think it's because like you look at Cities of Sigmar, even with their updates and expansions and everything they still lose more than they gain every single time. Right? It's like, oh, we're going to give you the cog fort and these 2, Gargant gatekeepers and another character, another wizard, whatever. But those 20 kits you had for all those elves and dwarves, well, they're gone. It's like, okay, so you gave us 6 or 7 new units, but you cut 20. That's
if you ask me, they maybe shouldn't have even had their own army until they had this roster figured out. But yes,
I agree. Yep.
I heard someone say that, by the way. Someone who plays Kill Team, very prominent content creator. I won't name him here, just kind of whatever. But he plays Deathwatch in Kill Team. And he said, I wish Deathwatch never would have gotten their own army rules in Warhammer 40K. And his reasoning was they never should, like, they were always just a like spec ops thing. They're the subsect that includes Space Marines, but they shouldn't have been their own codex. It should have always just been like a unit you could take, or maybe a character in a unit you could take within Space Marines. And it's funny because you can't say that to Deathwatch players now, but
it's the same thing with like the Inquisitors and the Inquisitorial warbands and stuff.
And
right?
what
like,
you and I always thought about Imperial Knights.
Should have been its own army. Yeah.
Some of these things do not deserve their own. And we forget, a lot of people forget that GW went through this phase where they were separating everything into as many separate armies as they could. If you remember, Iandin, the craft world, had its own codex for 1 edition.
Yeah,
and
it had its
in
own
that
codex, like some, yeah.
It had
Crazy.
2 pages total of rules. It was the army rules on 1 page and 1 unique unit on the other page. And it was like they got a whole codex supplement, a $55 book or whatever for that. Like
all the Space Marines had that too.
And so in
like,
the separate, yeah. And so in the next edition, they were like, no, the Iandin stuff's just going to go in craft. And then the 4 Iandin players were like, what? I want my own codex. It's like, no, not everything needs its own. Because people even memed for a while. They're like, oh, I'm just waiting for Codex Rhino to come out. Where it's like, so I kind of agree with them that it's like Death Watch never really should have had their own book. And now it started a problem. It literally created a problem where now you have people who expect Death Watch to get their own thing. Yeah. And if they don't, they create a stink.
Well, and I think they've fixed a little bit of that.
They have.
Like, obviously they haven't done it with Imperial Knights. It's still its own army, and
they've been expanding it.
They fully embraced that one, right? Like, that's never going away now.
Yep.
Now they've got 4 different sizes of knights and multiple patterns of each one.
Yep.
Loadouts. That's never going away now. But they backed off of what they were doing with Imperial agents.
Yep.
Right. The now Imperial agents, Inquisitors, and assassins and things like that are all just like, you bring some, you don't have an army of it. So, I mean, that's an improvement. Harlequins doesn't have its own army anymore. You just bring those part of either craft worlds or whatever. Yeah, Yannari, they're not their own army anymore.
Right.
So, like, they are kind of undoing some of it.
Tempestus Scions, they did the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they originally only had
the new ones for Eldar, the dinosaur riders.
They're not
going to be their own army.
No.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and it's funny so it's the loudest people I saw in the chat when they revealed the Exodites for Kill Team, and of course they will have rules in 40K. They even confirmed that. But you had like 2 people in the chat who were like, "Great, now expand to have their own." It's like, no, like they might expand on it a little bit, but it's going to be within the Eldari.
Right. If you want to thematically, as a player, have your own army. Now, here's some actual models that represents it, but make your grav tanks a pterodactyl with a laser
dinosaurs
on it. Yeah, like you can absolutely do that yourself as a hobbyist. Like, sure. I still think it's silly that they actually made real Exodite models. I do. I think it's really silly. I mean, if you're going to do it some way, I guess through Kill Team is the way to do it.
You know what though? This was that reveal in the eventual release was proof positive that the people will never be happy. So no matter what had happened at preview events for the last, 10 years since they've been doing them online, there was always someone in the chat who's like, "Where's my Exodites?" So now you've got them. But did that stop those people? No, they immediately asked for the next thing. They were immediately like, "Great, so when are we going to get the insert named Exodite hero from a 1994?"
Oh, okay, now do Mega Arachnids.
Yeah. Now do the Harud. Now do the... Yeah. So it's like they're never going to be, even when they get the thing they're screaming for, they're never going to be happy. So I don't know. This was like really proof positive of that. I think the models look cool. I think they're a stupid idea. They look cool though. But yeah.
Again, for me, it's like, are you doing everything that is most valuable? Like, are you properly utilizing your time? Because while you made this silly, like, one-off units, like, you've got other armies and other games, even in this game, that like need attention, and like you're wasting your time on this goofy side project.
Goofy side project that they shoehorned in to make some people happy. And that's exactly why they did it. They probably didn't have plans on it 2 years ago. And then you're right. You've got this game and a world in Age of Sigmar that needs not only expansion, but refreshment in some areas, updates in some areas, and dare I say, even Horus Heresy or Old World. Yep. Horus Heresy still has dozens of kits that need to be ported to plastic. Old World still has dozens of kits that are 20 plus years old. And all of those systems need massive updates, and you stopped to give people these 3.5 Exodites models, or however you want to consider it, because they wouldn't shut up about it. And you know, part of the release cycle is going to be disrupted in about 16 months with Steel Legion because people wouldn't shut up about it. So like, I don't know. I feel like some of these side project whiners get a lot of their stuff and it disrupts everything else that could be going towards improving their overall product catalog. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, that's just my opinion. You know,
Just my opinion.
no, I agree. Like, and again, it's so similar aesthetically to other things, and it's like, why did you decide to give it to them? I mean, we've seen it other places too for other big releases, like when Stormcast got their big dragons.
Yep.
It's like, why? Like, even though it's like, cool, I like dragons.
Yeah,
you're
they're
giving
cool.
it to an army that I have. Like, but why? Like, these dragons could have been given it to 3 or 4 other armies to benefit them more because they need the updates, and Stormcast definitely did not. Right? Like, even in the lore for those dragon release, it was like, oh well, you know, the lizard men cultivated the dragon eggs. It's like, okay, are they using the dragons now? No, they gave them to the Stormcast, so they have a 5th kind of cavalry. It's like, oh my god, why?
Yeah, and that was with a couple of things. It was like, and then this cool new weapon and armor technology made by the dwarves. Is it going to the dwarves? No, it's going to a Stormcast chamber. So they have like a 5th kind of paladin now. And that said, I think while the Stormcast aesthetic, this most recent go around is vastly improved. Yes, there were opportunities to expand the other armies or update the other armies that got missed to make their flagship line look better. That said, while we're talking about they don't need to branch every army off on their own, we're aware that there are Divergent Space Marine chapters that have their own codexes. We know this. Space Marines are the cash cow. They whatever, and they're different.
They kind of break the rules because even if they do a Divergent chapter of Space Marines, they'll still get more sales for that Divergent chapter than most other Xenos armies will.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, okay, fine.
So I get that Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Grey Knights have their own whatever.
Right.
That doesn't mean everyone needs their own codex, because then the game just becomes that, right? If they make Codex Minotaurs and it's a Space Marine chapter, like, I don't know, then
where do you stop? Yeah.
Right. So all that was Death Watch probably didn't need their own codex.
But if you do something where you release a named character for a Divergent chapter, maybe you give them their own detachment that says, you can only draw characters from the Minotaurs chapter. If you choose to play any named characters, it has to be from Minotaurs. And then they do something, and then you can include that guy in it.
Yep.
Right. Like they've done for every other chapter in the book right now, and in the index, whatever you call it. If you take this detachment, you can only include Raven Guard characters. You choose this one, you can include Iron Hand characters, named characters, whatever. I'd be fine with that, right?
Yep.
Like a character, the whole Space Marine normal roster plus a special detachment potentially. Fine. Do that for them. Do them for the Red Scorpions. Do that for the Blood Angels. Do them for Lamenters. Whatever chapters you want to do. Whoever the Crimson Fists, like whatever name characters you can come up with. Sure, here's a detachment for all of Space Marines, but also this one is special for them. That'd be fine.
Because it's interesting is as soon as something like that happens, though, I realize there are more Space Marine players than there are of any other faction in any other tabletop game in existence. But as soon as they get anything new, all that happens is thousands of posts and videos about, I hope GW does this next, and it's another Space Marine thing. It's like, we can't just have the game be all that. We really can't. Even in Horus Heresy, they only kind of can. So like in 40K, where you have all these very different factions, they just can't spend all their time giving Space Marines everything they want. We joked where it was like, well, now they're going to have a captain on a bike and a chaplain on a bike. And then the first thing that people said was not, yay, we're getting a captain on a bike. The first thing they said was, cool, when are we going to get the apothecary on a bike? When are we going to
get a librarian on a bike? It's like,
when are we getting an executioner on a bike? When are we going to get? It's like, okay, so I guess I need now, like my Broodlord with wings, and my Broodlord that tunnels, and my Broodlord on a monster, and my Broodlord on a are we going to do that for everybody? Like, I don't know. You've got a huge roster, Space Marine players, and you have huge number of options. You don't need every chapter represented, every unit represented. I don't know. That's again, all that was to say Death Watch doesn't need their own codex.
No. Yep.
But you know who does? The dwarfs need an update in this edition of Age of Sigmar. Do you think we'll get one, or do you actually think that original rumor that they won't get one is true?
No, I think they will. But I'd like to see a couple things happen. If they're going to do that with the dwarves, right? Create this combined arms kind of thing, with the dark elves being sent back to Old World. I want to see the same thing happen with them. I want to see the Daughters of Cain as a name go away, and I want to see Umbreneth, Shade, Walkers, something like that kind of an army, right? Where it includes all the Marathi units, all the Shadow Elves, like make Dark Elves be a combined army too, then, right? Because again, we're getting that way with Daughters of Cain, right? Where we've got the Cainite Shadow Stalkers, we've got the Witch Elves, we've got the Sisters of Slaughter, we've got now the new one that are armored. Like, it's like, how many units of ladies with knives do we actually need? Like, we've got too many of them. Like, why are we going so wide with this? Again, we've got units in that army that are from the Old World, from fantasy initially. That's the Cauldron of Blood. You've got some of the foot characters. You've got that unit of that dual kit of Sisters of Slaughter / Witch Elves.
And don't you have the stupid horse wizards too?
Yeah, those ones. The alternate version of them already went back to the Old World. They're part of High Elves. They're the Shadow Warriors on horses. I forget what they're called. But yeah, like that side is going back to Old World, right? There's a new like thing with the Elves of the Sea combined with the Elves of the Air, right? Like that, they're part of that army, that alliance of whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those kits weren't long for this world, where they're going to go back to Old World and be Dark Elves in the Old World, which means that roster gets cut down to this new armored elf, the shadowy elves with the crossbows, and then snake ladies, the two variants there, and then the Kinnerai, the winged like harpy elves. That's basically the whole army after that.
And then a handful of characters, right? Yeah.
And then a bunch of characters and Marathi. And so it's like, man, that roster is not wide, right? Like I said, maybe the Cauldron goes away at some point. Maybe, because they gave us a snake lady on foot.
Yep.
Who was not part of that kit. They gave us a few new like elf characters on foot that are not part of that Cauldron kit. If that goes away, I'd like to see, well, here's, a secondary faction as part of this faction, which includes more shadowy elves, assassins, more like beast tamers, and bring back your like executioner type unit again, that kind of stuff. Like, bring back all of Dark Elf Society and Age of Sigmar as one army.
That might be next edition. We see a big update for them where they make those final cuts to the Old World stuff.
Well, like I said, it feels very much like what they're doing with dwarves. They can absolutely do something very similar,
and even ogres. A lot of that Old World stuff going away, and then bumping them forward.
Yeah. But no, I do expect to see the combined dwarf army. I think it's a really good
holds. You think is a true rumor? Okay,
I think it's a good idea. Because like, while the Fire Slayers early on were a popular army, I don't think they are popularity stuck because they didn't know what to do with them. It was all just samey across the board, right? It was how many different units of naked Mohawk dwarves carrying different things can you make?
Yep.
All the characters, they were so confusing. It's like, which one's which? I can't tell. They're all just naked dwarves. Where do you go from there? Like, what's your next step? And so, so I don't know. I think that army was a little stagnated. I think it needed to, either go a vastly different direction and then get support, or it needs a transformation like this.
Well, I think
So-
its early popularity was almost solely because it was one of the first Age of Sigmar exclusive armies.
Yeah,
and so
I think it actually was.
Yeah. Because you got Stormcast and Blades of Corn, only they called them something else back then. It was Corn Bloodbound, and
Yep.
and then Fireslayers were the first like standalone. Eventually, we got Ironjaws, but Ironjaws got a big refresh, and now they need the same the Fireslayers. And if they're going to do the Coslet Hold things, that's fine. I
And
hope.
then the Ironjaws actually weren't Ironjaws initially; they were the Auric War Clans, right? Or no, they went from Ironjaws to War
Right.
Clans, then back. That's right. That's right.
Well, they merged with the Auric War Clans, and the Auric War Clans got all their Swamp Orc updates in third
Mhm.
edition, and now the two of them are together in one big thing. But so that could be why they're thinking the same thing with Fireslayers, is combine them with these new dwarfs, and then now it'll be one bigger roster, which immediately gives them a lot of new stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they might get it this edition. I had heard rumors that they were getting nothing this edition, and then others that they were going to be the last thing this edition.
Well,
When we go
so
through the
we've got,
list, what's left to get
yeah.
updated?
So when we look at generally how the cycle goes, it's usually in the summer, early summer.
Yep.
We get a new edition of a game, almost exclusively.
Yep.
Right. With the ogres announced, we've seen probably about half the stuff they're getting. We'll see the book on shelves probably around the time that box set comes out, right? We already see what the book looks like. Like it's
Right.
We know it exists and it's coming. After that, it's literally just Gargants, lizard men, and dwarves. That's it.
That's
Tell
it.
me you can't fit another full army in the next year,
Right.
when we might get a new edition next year at this time. I think so.
Now they
I
want to
think
leave
that's a
enough
tall
time
ask, right?
between the last release and the new edition.
Yeah.
But
a lot of the times when Age of Sigmar does a new edition, they don't wipe everything down to nothing. It would be like, hey, new edition, but your books are still good. So like if you did get a late book, you still carry it over to the new edition, if it's even needed.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
but
know
even
if
then,
they
I
need
could see
edition this early.
them doing releases between now and like February, before Adepticon rolls around and announces the new edition or whatever. And so
Sure.
and so they couldn't get 3 more armies out between now and then. Yeah, they
Right.
could. Yeah. 'Cause
Especially if the rumors say that like lizard men are coming. When they come, they're getting one new kit.
right.
You can get one model out with a book. Ogres, again, are eating up a lot. Gargants are going to get 2 kits, a new matriarch and a new.
I thought
Man
they were
Crusher
getting a new
mob.
man eater or man crusher, whatever the
Yeah,
smaller one
yeah.
is.
Yeah, so if like you get those 2 kits and a book, that's not bad. And then it's like, okay, you've got the third army after that is like a big refresh. That seems reasonable. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I've
I
heard-
think it's doable.
Speaking of, I know Seraphon is another army that you have.
Yeah.
But they've been one that and you liked a lot of the later updates they've gotten with new skinks and new SARS warriors
Mhm.
but like I've heard rumors about them that they've got more on the way. I don't know if it'll be in this edition's update, but it even sounds like some of their old dinosaur kits might get like rotated out and they'll get entirely new things.
I mean, it's the same deal with everything. Like if you're from the old world, I don't think you're safe, right?
I don't
Like,
think you're safe, right?
I think you're potentially going to get sent back at some point when they're ready for the update for the old world. All your fantasy kits where you originally were on a rectangle or a square, you're going to get sent back, and
And then you'll
either
be
you
on
get,
Legends for like a year and a half or
you get
whatever.
eliminated, or you'll get an update, like something will replace you. But that includes the Carnosaur kits, right? That includes the Engine of the Gods / Stegodon, the Bastillodon.
Yep.
Like all those kits are from old world, and like frankly they don't hold up scale wise.
No,
for,
and they
for the
did that
current game.
new.
Like, they're kind of tiny.
They did that new hero on the Agrodon, and then they did those Agrodon riders, and it was like, so the Carnosaur can kind of go, even though it's not the same. And then like if they are going to do a new big dinosaur, that'd be sweet, and they give it a more
give me one between what the size of the current Carnosaur is and the giant one. What's it called?
The Dreadsaurian?
Dreadsaurian.
The Forge-World one? That thing that's like that big?
Give me I mean, I don't want it that big, right? But give me something in between those. If the Agrodon now is what the cold ones were, and they're 2/3 the size of a Carnosaur, then give me a Carnosaur that's scaled up appropriately, right? And kind of give me a middle ground big monster in between those two kits in terms of scale.
Well, and
I'd be okay with that.
And you could get 2 or 3 units out of that. They could make it so there's a named guy, a generic guy that's a warrior, and a generic guy that's a priest or something, and then just like that.
I'd want to see like a named one, a generic one, and then maybe an unmounted one. Give me just a naked dinosaur that runs around. It's less,
you
whatever.
Always want the feral dinosaurs. Yep,
I do, and I think when it comes to the dinosaurs, it would be the one that makes the most sense to do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Unleash the dinosaur on them, and it just runs out there and kill. Like that makes more sense.
So we might have our roadmap without an official roadmap of what the rest of this edition of Age of Sigmar looks like, aside from the rules update. It's like there's only 3 armies left to get their battle tomes, which was Seraphon, dwarves, and what was the other one?
Gargants.
And so, and we've heard rumors of all of those. We know ogres are going to eat up a bit of time. If that dwarf release is true, that's going to eat up a lot. But they might even split it where it's like end of edition they get a lot, and then next edition they get a bunch more. And then Seraphon minor update, Gargant's minor update.
So there was rumors of a Coatl.
Oh, right. Yep.
Creature.
Some flying creature.
But like any of the current dinosaurs could get updated, replaced. And then there was a rumor about Temple Guard getting an update because that kit does not hold up.
But it still has rules, right?
Yeah, it has rules. It's in a plastic kit, but they used to be on squares. They were from Old World. And if you compare them to the new Saurus warriors, they're not only are they tiny, but they look stupid.
Whereas the new Saurus warriors look great. Look
amazing. And if they have that aesthetic, but are bigger, more, armored dinosaur bone headdresses.
Basically an elite Saurus warrior is what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's what they always have been. But I hope it's also like, because they're never like a hammer unit, right? When we talk about tactics, hammers and anvils, right? Where it's like the anvil holds things in place, the hammer comes down and crushes whatever it is in between. The Saurus Guard people have always tried to make them work. It's being like, oh yeah, they're this kill unit that wanted to be really hard hitting. I hope they go the opposite, right? I hope they don't pull any punches and they say, this is a defensive unit that's meant to protect this land, whatever. Right. They're beefy. They take wounds for this land, whatever. I want them to be a 3-man unit, right? I don't even want it to be 5 or 10, whatever. 3-man unit.
3-man, okay.
But I want them to be like beefy, not Croxagore size, but I want them to be like.
I was going to say, I would suspect they make them 5, unit of 5. But yeah.
But like, I don't want them to be like, oh, these guys hit really hard, and you want to play them and like go to. I want them to have a bodyguard rule. I want to have a lot of health, a ward save, whatever, and then that's all it does. Is it guards the slam? You know how we talked about units having a role, and other players saying, oh, I wish they'd lower the points. They got this. We had a funny conversation with a friend that wanted to make the Tau auxiliary unit.
Vespid.
The Vespid, just give them no guns and make them cheap so they can go around just doing objectives. Even though their guns are very, very good.
Their guns were very good.
In terms of an infantry gun, like it's a pretty solid gun. They're quick, they're decently at shooting, they're really good gun. That kind of thing, right? Like lower the points, give them no damage output, make them guard this land. There's a template, I would say, of what the unit should do. In Stormcast, there's a unit of Praetors, is what they're called. And they are a bodyguard unit for a character. You nominate a character when you build your list and say, this unit is guarding this character. It gives them a ward save. It gives the unit a ward save, whatever. But they are 3 wound, 3 up save, 3 attacks, 3/3, a lot of 3s, -1, 2 damage. They've got no other special rules. They've got no other cookies on hits or anything. They're just a solid unit, right? They've got halberds. They guard a character. That's exactly what I want this Saurus unit to be.
You know, really, rot swords perform kind of like that. They defend objectives and not like a hero, but
Mhm.
but they do. We have seen precedent this edition for them to design strictly defensive units. So,
Yeah.
and they're very good. So I could see them doing a temple guard that's like, maybe they'll have a unique rule where they debuff enemy units or just take away some of the sting of offensive units. They don't move fast, but they're really hard to move.
I mean, you've got rules like strikes first against chargers or anti-charge, right? You get Bennett,
especially if they give them like some sort of pole arm,
which they typically do. They've got those like Celestite pole arms and shields, like make them a defensive unit. I don't want this unit designed to be good enough that you reinforce it and just send it out there by itself to go kill everything. I don't want it to go kill the world with a guard unit. You know what I mean? You've got your Saurus warriors for that. You've got your Croxagores for that. You've got your dinosaurs riders for that. Let them go do that.
Yep. You've actually got
make
fast
the Saurus
cavalry
guard
in that army to go do that.
Make the Saurus guard look cool. Make them big, beefy, hulking, defensive. They can absorb a charge. They defend their charge. You know, they're in charge of.
They literally do. They defend temples. They defend Slan. They defend priests. Mm-hmm. They sit there and they're hard to move. Yeah. Okay. It's like when you eat that meal, it just feels like cement in your stomach.
Yep.
It's just not going to move.
It's just a solid rock.
Yep.
Absolutely. But speaking of, I could stand to eat.
I could go into a food coma for a bit.
Yeah.
Let's do that.